Hello and welcome to the Commissioner's Report. I'm your host, Tricia Pichette. In this episode, we'll be speaking with Commissioner and Board Chairman Bill Braswell about the state of agriculture in Polk County and the rest of the nation. Thank you for joining us, Commissioner.
Glad to be here.
Now, let's start. We got a lot to cover here.
Sure.
So, for those who don't already know, what is your relationship with agriculture?
So I've been farming blueberries in Polk County for 20 years. I've got a caretaking consulting business. Through that, we've put about 500 acres of blueberries in Polk County. And then I'm involved in the political side of farming. I've been president of our State Grower Association, vice president of our National Association, board member of Florida Fruit and Vegetable Farm Bureau. But the real eye-opener position that I have had was I was appointed by the president to the USDA's Ag Technical Advisory Committee, and we met regularly with Ambassador Lighthizer on trade policy.
Oh.
And that was a real eye-opener.
Wow. Now, what are some of the current issues facing farming?
Well, I mean, like every other occupation business in the world, expenses. You know, we've got a lot of wheels turning at the same time. You know, the trying to keep costs down is a big deal for us. Labor is a huge deal for us. I just heard this morning, because of the coronavirus, that the H-2A labor from Mexico will not be coming to the U.S. now. That by and of itself is going to be a tremendous hit to agriculture all over the country. It basically means a lot of fruit won't get picked. But those are just two of them. We've got plenty of issues, regulatory issues, regulations. You know, I feel like we're under attack from about 20 different angles.
Yeah. Now, how are some farmers adapting to these kinds of issues and changes?
Well, you know, one thing we're trying to do is use technology to get the fruit out of the field, to pack it, to get it to the grocery store. Mechanization is taken over in a lot of ways. We've got machine harvesters, we've got automated packing lines, and by taking that human aspect out of it, I think we're getting a better product. But, you know, it's just, produce is generally picked by hand, and it's you know, somebody's got to look at it, see if it's ripe, see if it's time to pick it, and right now the machines aren't quite there. They can go through and just kind of wipe everything off the bush, but then, you know, you got a lot of green fruit and rotten fruit and other stuff like that. So that's one aspect of it. Genetics is crazy important to agriculture right now. Just in the blueberry breeding program at the University of Florida and private programs around the world, they have created so much better quality plants which give off so much better quality fruit, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, the fruit quality has just gotten better every year. There's other technology, CRISPR, which is kind of like GMO, but it's not. Those are going to be a hard one to roll out with people because they have this, what I consider, unreasonable fear of the unknown. And it's very unfortunate because GMO products from agriculture could really make a huge difference in the world. You know, I've said it before, we can feed the world, we just can't afford to feed the world. And so if GMOs were more in use in other parts of the world, they could feed themselves.
Now, what are some of the biggest issues to farmers of Polk County specifically?
Yeah, and it'll sound crazy, but trade policy is the biggest issue for farming in Polk County and the state of Florida. Outside of the citrus greening issue, which has pretty much wiped out the citrus crop, and the trees, not just the crop, but the actual trees, they have their own set of problems. Everything else growing in the state is really, the biggest issue is trade policy. And what I mean by that is Florida was or used to be the winter vegetable growing capital of the United States. We're kind of counter-seasonal to everybody else. You know, the summer is when you get vegetables everywhere else. We have it available in the wintertime. Well, when Mexico figured this out and Honduras figured this out and Guatemala, they all started growing the same crops that we grow. So now, like we were talking about earlier, people don't realize there's a season for growing different crops based on the weather. But because we can import it from a boat, from an airplane, from anywhere on this planet, people have no concept that, you know, it's coming from the other side of the planet to get here so you can have blueberries in December. And the trade policies right now favor everyone but Florida. There's a lot. I'll give you an example. Chile imports about 200 million pounds of blueberries into the United States. No state in the union is allowed to import a blueberry to Chile. The policy's one way and one way only. You know, we when I was on the ATAC in D.C., we talked the ears off of the people who control the trade and negotiate the treaties. But you know, it's a slow process. We're having a meeting, well, maybe, in a couple of weeks in Plant City to talk to the ambassador again. But trade policy has to change for Florida agriculture to stay in business.
Now, what are the ramifications for the Polk County farmers or farmers in general about not being able to compete price-wise?
Well, I mean, the bottom line is, and we're all guilty of it, Americans like big bags of cheap food. It's just a fact. The grocery chains know it, and when Mexico drops the price of blueberries a penny, they go to Mexico. When we cut it another penny, they'll come back to us. What people have to realize is, first of all of these imports fall under a whole different set of standards. You know, we've got the FDA, the EPA, we've got FDACS, we've got everybody looking at us all the time. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, you know, because it means that we produce a quality product. You go outside of this country, you don't know what you're getting. And trust me, I've been outside of this country a lot looking at farms, and the rules are just, they don't exist. A good example is we're growing organic blueberries now. It is a well-known fact, all of the imported organic blueberries do not play by the rules. The USDA just allotted $40 million to the enforcement side to look at all of the fruit that's coming in from the Black Sea states, from Mexico, from Central America. None of it is complying with the organic rules, which mean no pesticide, no synthetic fertilizer. They're just doing whatever they want. And what they know is we do not test that when it comes into the United States. We can't. It's an overwhelming amount of fruit and vegetables coming in. It's randomly tested, maybe 1 out of 10,000 is tested, and almost every one of those comes back with some kind of pesticide on it. So the economic consequences are, if you want farmers to stay in business in the United States, you're going to have to pay a little bit higher price.
Yeah. And if you want something that you can depend on to be what it says it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, we're right in the middle of this coronavirus thing, and there's a lesson to be learned here. Last week, or maybe it was the beginning of this week, China insinuated that they may not make medicine, or at least not ship it to the United States to handle this outbreak. In 1973, I turned 16 years old. On my 16th birthday, I bought a used car and got my driver's license. I was ready to go. 2 months later, the oil embargo hit. People today don't realize the government shut us down. We were shut down. You couldn't drive a car. Fuel was rationed. You had to wait all day to get a tank of gas if you could get it. And there's no reason that what China is threatening to do to us now, the Arab states did to us then, the producers of our food could do to us in the future. And the problem with the food chain idea is oil, they can turn it off and on. Medicine, they can turn it off and on. If they turn off the food and it's turned off for 2 weeks, it's no longer food. It's mush. And so you're now 180 days from having another crop. So it's not something we can just turn off and on. So what's important is for people to it's just being aware of what you're buying, where it's coming from, and what are the consequences.
Yeah. So how can we help the farming industry? Buy
American. I mean, that's what it really gets down to. There's a name a lot of people recognize, Lawton Childs. His son, Bud Childs, and I are friends, and Bud has begun this campaign. We're calling it American Grown. And it's not a big aggressive campaign. What we really want are the consumers of the United States to, number one, get more in touch with where their food comes from, how it's grown, who grows it. Once they do that, I think they'll realize that quality, taste, flavor, they can get all those things. Now the buy local thing, it just hasn't panned out because what's local? You know, I mean, is it next door? Is it in Virginia? Who knows? But the Buy American, that means that the delivery time was much, much shorter. The fruit is going to be much, much fresher. On top of the fact it's been tested and checked and all of those things. But most people just simply don't have any connection with farming, farmers, their food. Their connection is Publix.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it is. And we hope through this campaign, it's called American Grown. The website is americangrown.com, I believe, but I hope you'll flash up the website while we're talking. But it kind of outlines what we're trying to do. We're just trying to make farmers aware that their buyers don't know where their food comes from. We're trying to make the buyers aware that you need to find out where your food is coming from. And we don't want to get in the situation where we're dependent on somebody else to feed us. That would be bad.
Yes, it would. And having said that, to some extent, the stores they're starting to respond. I mean, I can go into a store now and know where some of the goods I'm about to buy come from. There's a little sign that tells me that.
Right.
Those are new.
Well, you know, one thing, if you want to buy food from Florida, produced in Florida, we've got the Fresh from Florida sticker that the Florida Department of Agriculture, you have to join that organization, and they allow you to use that sticker on your food. But it means the food was grown right here in Florida, and it's very important to look for that. But where it really gets tricky, if you pick up a package of, we'll say, blueberries, and the company is a United States company, you'll see their address. They do this intentionally. Their address will be larger. And then somewhere on there, they have to say where the food came from. And it may say product of Mexico, but it'll be in little teeny type, and their California address will be in big type. So people pick it up, they go, oh, it's California, it's American grown, when in fact it's not. So ultimately, we would like to have a certification process, because we already go through a lot of certificate. We have food safety audits, I have organic audits. All of the retailers are kind of trying to one-up each other on making it difficult to send produce to them. They have sustainability audits. They have economic sustainability. I mean, it's crazy stuff. But what we want to do, like I said, is make people aware that they just got to pick that thing up and look at it. And when they do that, they'll realize that they really are buying a product made in the United States of a quality that they can count on. If you look back over the decades at where all of these E. coli problems have come from, with the exception of one out in Colorado, they've all either originated south of our border, or actually we had a listeria outbreak that came in from Europe. But none of it ever starts here. You know, it gets blended in with food produced in the United States. And when you go to the produce aisle, there's product from Mexico and product from the U.S. sitting next to each other. And you just have to pick it up and look at it. But you'll see through history all of the bad stuff has come from somewhere else.
Well, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much.
Well, I enjoyed being here. And if I can just say one thing, if people can go to the website, take a look, see what they can do. One thing we are asking is, if you don't see American-made produce in the produce department, ask for it. You know, we all know if you go to the Publix produce manager, you'll get what you ask for. And that's what we're asking people to do, because we think it's important.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
And thank you for joining us for another edition of the Commissioner's Report.